This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good evening or good afternoon to all of you, wherever you may be in the world. Firstly, a big yasher koyach to Rabbi Glatstein for his wonderful delivery of Shiur each week. Really is a delight. And we have received tremendous feedback from all of you. And secondly, a huge thank you to the team in South Africa who are producing the weekly material that we are getting ready, Be'ezras Hashem, to be compiled into the book, Shabbos 39. As we all know, Shabbos is the cornerstone and foundation of our week. And what better way to honor and enhance it than learning the halachas together with you. So it's a great schus for all of us. We do, however, need to make a heartfelt campaign to raise some funds for the continuation of this project, which requires a big investment. And so to all of you listening now or later on Torah Anytime, if just 100 of you can kindly consider gifting $10 a month, or perhaps 10 of you consider giving $100 a month, so that we'll be able to carry on. Please go to bit.ly/Shimru donate, that's bit.ly/Shimru donate, and you can make a dedication for a single shiur or a whole month. And Hashem should reciprocate and shower health and blessings on you and your entire families. Wishing you a wonderful Shabbos. And now to Rabbi Glatstein for this week's malacha of Zoreh, winnowing, not to be confused with Zoreh, planting.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Shimru. We're doing the malacha of Zoreh. Okay, I was also asked, this shiur is hosted by the Shimru program, which is a branch of the International Shabbos Project. But there's a lot involved in getting the shiur till this point. They have an entire team of Talmidei Chachamim working on the source material to be able to present one malacha in 1 week based on all the Gemaras and the Rambam and the Achronim and the Poskim. And in order to fund this team, they are reaching out if anybody would like to participate in funding this project. It will culminate in the production of a sefer, which is being produced by the Shabbos project called Shabbos 39, I believe. So if anybody would like to participate, please go to the Shimru site or location and Tavay Aleichem Bracha. Okay. So we begin today with Melechas Zoreh. Zoreh is the 7th malacha. It's pretty amazing. It's the 6th malacha. It's amazing. We've been doing this now for 7 weeks because we began with Bishul, and then we started with Zoreah, planting, Choresh, plowing, Koitzer, harvesting, Ma'amer, bundling, Dash, threshing, and now we're talking about winnowing. Now, where was winnowing used in the Mishkan? So after they threshed, which means they took off the kernel from the, they took off the husk from the kernel, they took off the bad from the good, so now you're left with the herb. But in the herb itself, there are wanted parts and unwanted parts. So how do you separate the wanted from the unwanted? So basically you would throw it up in the wind, and the wind would blow away the lighter, unuseful parts, and it would leave behind the heavier, useful parts, and that is the malacha of Zoreh, winnowing. In other words, you're harnessing the wind to select. That is the simple definition of the malacha. Number 1, harnessing the wind, and number 2, selecting. We're going to see in the Gemara, there seem to be 3 malachas that are all doing the same thing. Namely, the Gemara says, Zoreh, Boirer, and Meraked, winnowing, selecting, sifting, it's all the same thing. Why do I need 3 malachos? And that's something that the Gemara will discuss. But that's the malacha of Zoreh. You're harnessing the wind to select the wanted from the unwanted. Now, we're just going to get this on Torah Anytime. Just 1 second, I'm sorry. Are you with me? Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so the Tolda of Zoreh. What is the Tolda of Zoreh? The Gemara, the Rambam does not list any Toldos of Zoreh, which is quite interesting that there are no Toldos. How could it be that you have a Malacha with no Toldos? Okay, but we're going to see actually that there are Toldos of Zoreh, but the Rambam does not list any of them. Okay. What about the Isurei D'Rabbanan? So the Rambam says that winnowing, selecting are avos malacha, and therefore it is, even though it's mutter, limlo malilos. What does limlo malilos means? You're going to take on the edge of your fingers, you're going to take the husk, and you're going to dehusk the kernel from the seed from the husk. You're not allowed to do that in a regular manner, but what you could do is, as we're going to see, you could blow on it, holding it in one hand with all of your strength, and that would be permitted. But you cannot do so with a special instrument. So to use a funnel or a plate, which are the tools which are dedicated for this is not permitted. Okay, so we have the Av Malacha. We mentioned the Rambam's opinion is that there are no Taldos, and there are Isurei D'Rabbanan involved. Okay, so now we come to the Gemara, and the Gemara asks the question of the day. The Gemara asks as follows. The Gemara asks, Hazoira, Haboirer, V'Hatoichen, V'Hameraked. Those are four malachos mentioned in the Mishnah and Shabbos. Winnowing, selecting, grinding, sifting. The Gemara asks, 3 out of those 4 are exactly the same. Hainu Zoreh, Hainu Boirer, Hainu Meraked. It's all the same. Be it winnowing, be it selecting, be it sifting. In other words, why do I need 39 malachos? We should have 38 malachos. Zoreh, Boirer, Meraked, they're all the same. Rashi explains the Tana of the Mishnah broke it up into 3 parts, but they're really one malacha. You're taking the good from the bad. By the way, this question of the Gemara is based on the fact that oifeh and mevashel, baking and cooking, are also, it's listed as one, baking. So we see that even though it's a different process, but if it's accomplishing the same objective, then it's one malacha. So likewise, Zoreh, Boirer, Meraked, it should all be the same. So, answers the Gemara, Abaye v'Rava, the Amri Tarvayu, Abaye and Rava, they both say, Kol milsa dahavya b'mishkan, any activity that was in the Mishkan, even if there's another activity that is similar to it, is counted as 3 separate malachos, despite the fact they're all accomplishing the same thing. Since they were performed in 3 different stages of the Mishkan, therefore they're considered 3 different malachos, even though they're very similar. Question: why is this different? And if we know that if somebody beats the thread of the weft, that is considered ariga, that is considered weaving. And the Gemara says on Daf Ayin Hey Amud Beis that beating the weft threads is not a different malacha than oireg. So, question: why is Zoreh, Boirer, Meraked 3 different malachas, and weaving and beating the thread 1 malacha? That's the kasha of Rashi. Says Rashi that beating the weft thread, that is actually weaving, that is part of the very weaving process. However, winnowing and selecting and sifting, they are all done on 3 different items. How's that? The winnowing is on the stalks, boirer is on pebbles, and sifting is on flour. In other words, beating the weft thread, it's all on the same material, namely the thread. And therefore, since it's on the same material, it's considered 1 malacha. As opposed to Zoreh, Boirer, and meraked, which are all on the different materials, they are considered three different malachos. Again, Rashi is saying, and it's very important to remember this, Rashi is found on Ayin Heyom Beis, that since these malachos are being done on three different stages of material, three different types of material, it's considered three different malachos as opposed to beating the weft thread and weaving. However, Rashi on the Mishnah gives a completely different reason why these three malachos are counted as three. And Rashi says, because a different vessel and utensil is used to perform them. You winnow with a rachas, with a pitchfork. You select with your hands, and you sift with a sieve. So Rashi is saying something different. Rashi on Ayin Hey says the reason why there are three different malachos is because it's on three different raw materials: stalks, pebbles, flour. And Rashi on Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph says, not because it's on three different raw materials, it's because three different kalim are used. So what is the main nikud over here? What is the main point over here? In other words, what constitutes, what's the main reason that there are three different malachos? Is it because it's performed on three different stages, or because three different kalim are used? So comes the Sefer Shvisa Shabbos. And he says, Rashi agrees that winnowing is only in the wind, and sifting is only in a kli. Meaning, the main definition of a malacha is what utensil is used. The main way to categorize which malacha you're violating is which utensil you use. In other words, if you use a pitchfork, that's Zoreh. If you use your hands, that's boirer. If you use a sieve, that is meraked, regardless of what you use it on. So why does Rashi say it's different raw materials? So it says a Shvisa Shabbos because Rashi is bothered by a kasha. What about mevashel and oifa? Mevashel and oifa, you're also using different utensils. You were using a pot or an oven. So why aren't those three different? Why aren't those two different malachos? Meaning, the Shvisa Shabbos says Rashi holds the main way to categorize a malacha is the utensil that's used. But Rashi is bothered by a kasha. What about baking and cooking? And the answer is that the reason why Zoreh, Boireh, and Meraked are counted separately is because they're done at different stages. As opposed to baking and cooking, they're all done at the same stage. But once that's the fact, once they're considered separate because they're done at different stages, then the way to categorize a malacha is not by what stage it's done, but rather what kind of utensil is used. That is how the Shvisas Shabbos looks at it. However, the Eglei Tal says no. The main factor of determining the definition of a malacha is what kind of material is it used on. If it is on the stalk, then it's winnowing. If it's on a pebble, it's boirer. If it's on flour, it's meraki. That is the ikar criteria. What are you using? Why does Rashi say that one you use a pitchfork, one you use your hand, one you use a sieve? Rashi's just telling you the typical, usual way with which these malachos are accomplished. That is how the Eglei Tal understands it. Okay, here's another important factor. Rabbeinu Chananel. Says Rabbeinu Chananel that if you take in your hand grain, and in the grain it's mixed with psoiles, refuse, it's mixed with straw, it's mixed with waste matter, and you blow on it, and you separate the waste from the kernels, that's Zoreh, that's winnowing. You're not using the wind. You're blowing on it. That is considered Zoreh. So we see from Rabbeinu Chananel that Zoreh is not only if you use the wind, but even if you blow on it, that's considered winnowing. Now the Eglei Tal says that's not the Av Malach of Zoreh, that's a Tolda. Finally we found the missing Tolda of Zoreh. Right? I'm very into titles. You know, if you go on Torah anytime, people say, Glatstein, you have long titles, you have unusual titles. Those are the nice ways of saying it, right? But I'm very into titles, because titles are how you get people to watch the shiur. In other words, if I'm going to say, okay, watch the shiur, it's about winnowing, who's interested in winnowing? But I would name the shiur, The Mystery of the Missing Tolda of Zoreh. It even rhymes, right? In other words, the Rambam doesn't give any toldos of Zoreh. What is the tolda of Zoreh? It would be blowing on items using your self-created wind to separate. Okay. The Sefer Shvisas Shabbos asks on this Shita of Rabbeinu Hananel, based on the Gemara in Be'o, Yud Gimel Amud Beis Yud Daled Amud Aleph, Rabbeinu Hanan, the Gemara says like this: how could you blow on grain? Rabbi Lezer says you could blow in one hand with all your strength. So that seems to say that you're allowed to blow on Shabbos. Okay, next. Let's say you put a sword. Last night we gave a shiur on the stick of Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's say you put a stick on the top of your roof, or a bowling ball on the top of your roof, and the wind comes and it blows the bowling ball and it falls down on your friend's yard and it breaks his fence. Are you chayiv or pater? You're pater. Grama b'nezakin pater. You didn't actively damage your friend. You just indirectly caused damage, and by doing so, you are pater. Grama b'nezakin pater. So the Gemara in Baba Kama has the following question. We know that if you throw up grain and the lighter, unuseful part gets blown away and you're left with the heavier useful part, you're chayiv. Why? You didn't do anything. You're grama. You just threw it up. There's no issur in throwing up grain. The selecting happened through the wind. That's a grama. Why? We know grama b'nezakin is pater. Why is grama on Shabbos chayiv? And Rav Ashi says a very big chiddush, that the din that you're chayiv for winnowing, that's only regarding Shabbos. Because Shabbos, the Torah asers a thoughtful procedure, a thoughtful mechanism, which is, in this case, you threw up a grain and you're harnessing the wind. That's meleches machshavas. But when it comes to damaging, it's a grama b'nezakin pater. Says Rashi, what does that mean? Meleches machshavas osra Torah. The Torah asers you to carry out your plan. In this case, your plan was carried out. Says the Rush that the reason why you're chayiv on Shabbos for Zoreh is because this malacha, the main way to perform it is through a grama, through the wind. So even though it's caused and it's indirect, you're chayiv, because on Shabbos we are concerned with whether your plan is executed, and in this case, your plan is executed. For example, this nice booklet gives an example. When any hunters over here? Any hunters? I assume most of the people here are hunters because I'm only seeing like a few faces. Usually when people hide their identity, it's because they're closet hunter. Rabbi Avi, Shalom Aleichem. Baruch Reifechem. Rabbi Avi has now come out of the closet. He's not a hunter. Okay, I didn't think so. I didn't think you would be a hunter. But what's the halacha if you hunt with dogs? See, you're running after a deer, and you incite the dogs to try to catch a deer. So the halacha is that you're chayiv. Why are you chayiv? You should be pater. It's a grama. The answer is because the Sharat Zion explains the main way hunting is performed is through an animal. It's a typical way to do so. So even though b'nezakin you're pater, when it comes to Hilchais Shabbos, you are chayiv. Now this is the most interesting part of the shiur, and there's a little bit of a divide between the theoretical, as you have on the Ramar Makoimos, and the halacha l'maisa. At least the way the practice is in America. Okay, the shaila is like this. Let's try to dig in to the definition of Zoreh, winnowing. By the way, the halachas of Zoreh are found in Shulchan Aruch Shin Yud Tes. How do you remember that? I don't know. Learn the halachas at your Shabbos Tish backwards. Shin Yud Tes. That's the best I came up with today. But the shayla is like this. What is Zoreh? Is it selecting? You're using the wind to select, to choose, to differentiate, and to leave you with the good product and to blow away what is not needed? Or is the malacha of Zoreh harnessing the wind, scattering in the wind? Let's say I get a kick out of pouring. I live on the third story, let's say, and I want to pour water off my porch, and the wind's going to come and spread it everywhere and sprinkle it down on everybody standing below, and they're going to think it's raining. I get a kick out of when people are walking home from shul, spilling water on their head and making people think it's raining. Is that Zoreh? In other words, I'm not separating, I'm merely harnessing the wind. That's the shayla. So there's an amazing Yushalmi. The Yushalmi says if you spit and the wind disperses it, you're chayiv for Zoreh. Anything missing the wind, you're chayiv for Zoreh. Anything that requires the wind, you're chayiv for Zoreh. Based on the Yushalmi, the Rama famously paskins in Siman, Shin Yud Tes, Sif Yud Zayin, that if you spit on Shabbos and the wind scatters it, you're chayiv for Zoreh. Okay, that's the psak of the Rama. That is based on the Yushalmi. Comes the Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah says that we do not find that people are choishesh for this shita of the Rama based on the Yushalmi. Why not? Because you're not mechavein to do it. You're not mechavein to cause the wind to scatter your spit. Number 2, says the Bir Halacha, this is not the derech of Zoreh. And no, that's all the Mishnah Berurah says. It's not the derech of Zoreh to spit in the wind and have the wind carry it. What exactly is the Mishnah Berurah getting at? What is the logic over here? So the Bir Halacha quotes Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Now listen carefully, because many poskim bring down the chumrah, but lemaisa we're going to come out lekula today. And that is the Bir Halacha wants to know that the poskim leave out the Yushalmi. The poskim do not quote the Yushalmi that if you spit in the wind, you're chayiv. You know why, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger? Because the poskim hold that the Bavli understands that Zoreh is selecting, not using the wind. There's no malacha of using the wind, harnessing the wind. No such malacha of scattering something in the wind. No, Zoreh is like boirer, where you're mevarer, you're selecting the refuse from the food. But if it's all refuse, if someone just spits in the wind and then the wind scatters it, that's not Zoreh. By the way, the raya to this understanding, and that the Bavli holds that there's no isser of scattering something in the wind, is, remember, when the Mishnah says, Zoreh, boirer, meraked, the Gemara asks, Hainu Zoreh, Hainu boirer, Hainu meraked. It's all the same thing. What do you mean it's not all the same thing? I thought Zoreh is using the wind. Clearly the Bavli disagrees with the Yushalmi. The Yushalmi holds using the wind is Zoreh. The Bavli holds there's no isser of using the wind. The isser is selecting with the wind. By the way, Rabbi Akiva Eiger brings a number of reasons why we don't hold like this Yushalmi. Number 1, the poskim don't bring it. Number 2, Zoreh is a type of selecting. And even the Ramah, who wants to say spitting in the wind is a problem, that's only spit which is considered growing from the ground. So you say, what? Why does spit grow from the ground? Well, the same way we said last week, cows are considered growing from the ground because they are nourished from the ground. A human, an Adam, could be called Gidulei Karka. However, water, if you want to spill water off your porch and have the wind carry it, that would be permitted. Furthermore, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, it's a psik reisha deloi nichale. You have no interest for the wind to scatter your water. And then Rabbi Akiva Eiger brings another reason, quoted by the Mishnah Berurah in the Bir Halacha, the Alfei Menashe. And the Alfei Menashe says, you know what the Yerushalmi means, that you're not allowed to spit in the wind? The Yerushalmi doesn't mean that you're over winnowing. The Yerushalmi means the same way when you winnow in the wind, you're chayiv, even though you're not doing it, the wind is doing it. If you spit in the wind, you're chayiv not for winnowing, for carrying. But I didn't carry, the wind carried it. The same way if I harness the wind to select, it's a malacha. If I harness the wind to carry, it's a malacha. In other words, what the Ramah is saying is you're not allowed to fly a kite on Shabbos if there's no Eruv, because it's carrying. It's not winnowing. The analogy to winnowing is just like by winnowing, you're not doing it, you're harnessing the wind. So too, by carrying, even though you're not doing it, you're harnessing the wind, that's a violation of carrying. But it is not a violation of winnowing. In other words, Rabbi Akiva Eger's opinion is that the Bavli holds winnowing is only if there's selecting involved here. However, if you're not selecting, you're just scattering everything, the opinion of Rabbi Akiva Eger, the opinion of the Mishnah Brura, is not like the Ramah who codifies Yerushalmi, but that it is mutter. And therefore, now I'll tell you the truth, the Magen Avram is machmir like the Ramah. Because the Magen Avram in Hilchos Pesach, in Siman, Taf, Mem Vav, Sif Beis, says that if it's Erev Pesach that falls out on Shabbos, and you can't burn your chametz, the Magen Avram says, don't scatter it in the wind, because that's Zoreh. The Mishnah Brura says, though, you could scatter it in the wind. And the Bir Halacha explains, because it's not a malacha d'oraisa. That implies the Mishnah Brura holds that it might be a malacha d'Rabbanan. So Marv Rabbi said, what would you say about the following cases? Are you allowed to take a tablecloth and shake it out in the wind? Good question. Rabbi Avi, you like that question? You like that shaila? No? You have a tablecloth, and it has a lot of crumbs on it. I told you, not in my house. In my house, we don't produce crumbs. There's no messes in my house. But in other houses, people, they're very messy. So you want to take your tablecloth, open up the window. I would highly recommend you avoid falling out the window. That's always preferable. But you want to shake it out in the wind. Are you allowed to shake out a tablecloth in the wind? The answer is, it's a machloikis, according to Rabbi Akiva Eger, the Bavli and the Yerushalmi. According to the Yerushalmi, you cannot use the wind to disperse anything. According to the Bavli, you can't use the wind to select. But if you're not selecting, you're just trying to get rid of all the psoilas, it's mutter. Now, many poskim say you're not allowed to do it, including the Lamed Tes Malachos book, Rabbi Ribiat's book. However, the halacha is it's mutter. You're allowed to do it. I spoke to Rav Shmuel first, right before the Shiur, and Rabbi Shimon Eider in his book says, Rav Moshe says it's mutter, and that's because we go like the Mishnah Brura, and the Mishnah Brura goes like Rabbi Akiva Eger, that we are not choishesh for the Ramah over here, and the reason is Rabbi Akiva Eger has a number of questions. Most importantly being, the Bavli does not accept the Yerushalmi's understanding of Zoreh. Now in this Chashava handout, they do bring from a number of poskim that are strict regarding the following issues. Rabbi Ribiat writes that it's not permitted to dust off a book in the wind, or to shake off a dusty blanket in the wind. Now, Marv Rabbi say, that is all according to the Chumrah of the Yerushalmi, codified by the Ramah. However, the Mishnah Brura says, we're not choishesh for the Yerushalmi. And Rabbi Akiva Eger learns, by the way, we're not arguing on the Ramah over here. We're interpreting the Ramah, that the Ramah, when he says you can't spit in the wind, it's because it's carrying. But to use the wind to shake off dust or dirt that's on something, and you're not selecting, you're just trying to get rid of everything, the Mishnah Brura and Rav Moshe, Rav Shmuel first concurred, are mekel. So again, there are poskim that are choishesh for the strict view. I personally am a Mishnah Berurah man through and through, l'chumra u'l'kula, and in this case, the Mishnah Berurah is lenient. By the way,
why isn't shaking off the tablecloth carrying? Why aren't the crumbs carried?
You're right. If there's no Eruv there, then who is that? Michael? Michal?
No, it's David.
David's raising a very important point. You're right. If there's no Eruv and you're shaking it off outside, it's the same carrying. I'm talking about in your backyard, you have a fence or you have an Eruv, then you would be allowed to, at least according to Mishnah Berurah and Rabbi Kiva Eiger. There's a shaila about using aerosol cans, where, again, on the booklet over here, he brings the opinion of the Hilchos Shabbos b'Shabbos, who says you should not even shake off a tablecloth in your house without using the wind. Merely, so to speak, shaking something in the static air is an issue as well. However, as I pointed out, the Mishnah Berurah holds you can even use the wind to shake off your tablecloth, and the reason being is because the Bavli understands Zoreh is different, is only using the wind to select, not using the wind to scatter. By the way, even the poskim that are strict regarding using the wind to scatter, they have a leniency, but with the aerosol cans, and Rav Moshe is for sure makel by the aerosol cans, and that's because no wind is involved at all. There is a pressurized area in the can, and that causes the particles to scatter. Okay.
Is there an issue if you scatter the crumbs, even in your backyard, and you know for sure the birds are going to come to eat them, and during the course of the week you feed the birds, you put the crumbs or bird seed or whatever. So is that a pesik ratio d'nichalei, and you're not supposed to feed the birds on Shabbos?
There's no malacha d'oraisa of feeding birds on Shabbos, of feeding animals. One is not supposed to feed animals on Shabbos. That's why the Mishnah Berurah says on Tashlich, one cannot throw bread to the fish. On Shabbos Shira, you cannot put out bread on Shabbos for the birds. Again, over here in this case, you're shaking out the tablecloth, you have no intention of feeding anybody, it's scattering in the wind, it's definitely loy nichalei, and feeding an animal on Shabbos is not a malacha, it's just maybe uvdin dechol, it's a weekday kind of activity. If this is not your intention, that would be okay. Again, if you have birds lined up in your backyard and you're shaking it out in order to feed them, so that's different. Okay, Rabbi Isai, so that's the malacha of Zoreh. Again, it's a malacha that might not have taldos, although the talda of the eglei tal is blowing. But if you're merely scattering, even though there's a chumrah of an interpretation of the Yushalmi, the Mishnah Berurah and Rabbi Kiva Eiger do not accept that interpretation, and therefore that would be permitted. Okay, Be'ezus Hashem, the next malacha is a whopper, boirer, and we will continue Be'ezus Hashem. Thank you everyone for joining us. Bracha v'atzlacha. Have a great day. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.